Tennessee, Tim Burchett. Congressman Burchett, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me, ma'am.
Of course. Now, let's talk a little bit about the House Ethics Committee. There sounds like they're going to meet Wednesday and possibly vote on releasing this report on Matt Gaetz. They might release it to the public. What message do you have for your colleagues in the House Ethics Committee?
I think that just the fact that the Justice Department, the Biden Justice Department, that hates Matt Gaetz to its core for exposing them for weaponizing against citizens that have the audacity to come and pray in front of an abortion clinic, were arrested in the middle of the night at gunpoint in front of their infant children. The Justice Department that labeled American citizens that came to school board meetings because they were concerned about what their kids were being taught were labeled as domestic terrorists. And Matt exposed all that. And that is the Justice Department that chose to throw out the complaints and charges against Matt Gaetz. So I think you need to take all this with a grain of salt. I know it might come as a shock to some people, but politics does enter into the United States Congress, and I dare say it could enter into an ethics complaint. We all know the history of Matt and our former speaker and where that ended up. So there's a lot of things that are at work here and at play here, and I hope we just follow our rules, ma'am.
Right, so no charges were brought. Gaetz has long denied all these accusations, but I am curious as to your thoughts here, because there's a bipartisan group of senators that are telling our reporters on the Hill they do want to read the report. So do you think that if they're voting to confirm him, that they should have access to it?
Well, there's a current group of United States senators that voted for the current Attorney General that we've had so many problems out of, that has weaponized the Justice Department against American citizens. So I understand the Senate's concern, but I would hope that they would, as my mama used to say, they need to stick to their own knitting, and they need to stick over there in the Senate and let the House run the House. I think that's going to create a lot of problems.
So if you want them to stick to their own knitting, as you say, do you think that he has enough support to be confirmed?
I have no idea, ma'am. Again, the Senate shouldn't tell us what to think, and I shouldn't tell them what to think. But I think the president, of course, can still make that appointment through recess, and that would last for, I believe, over 200 days. And I think after 200 days, you would see what somebody like Matt Gaetz would do with a weaponized Justice Department. I believe he can turn it around and put it back to where it used to be, because everybody always comes in, they're president, and they appoint the head person, and everybody's cheering and you know, because they got their guy in. But the reality is they don't run government. It's the second, third, and fourth tier level people that are in all these alphabet agencies and all our departments that actually run government. And that's why we've had so much trouble in the courts. As you know, these things have been, a lot of things have been thrown out as unconstitutional. That's why the Doge group is so popular right now, because people realize that a lot of this has gone on by executive order, and that's the only way it's going to be cleared up is through executive order and strong leadership in these positions. And if Matt is allowed to do that, I believe he will clean that department up.
I want to talk to you about another nomination here in RFK Jr. The former acting CDC director, Dr. Richard Besser, he spoke with our Martha Raddatz on This Week, and he said many things, but one part he said that, and one thing he thinks is particularly dangerous about RFK Jr. is that there's some things that RFK Jr. says that are true, but they're mixed in with things that are not true. So do you think that RFK Jr. will be the best advocate for the health of all Americans?
I think he's got Big Pharma and Big Food very concerned, ma'am. I'm an organic gardener. I have a little farm, and we don't allow any chemicals outside of horse manure on our fields. So I'm a big believer in that. I think you've seen a historic rise in things like autism. I don't know what causes that. I don't think anybody really does, but we've seen those rises. We see people, cancer clusters where there's no history of it, and there's something going on with the health of America. We're obese, we're overweight. And RFK is Jr. He's raising a lot of those concerns. It's the same people that say he doesn't know science. Some of those are the same people saying that men can have babies. So I'd say just let him do his job. Congress will be able to do his job. The Constitution's still in place. And again, these people are at the top of these groups, and it's the real problems lie within.
I also want to ask you about the DOJ that you brought up here. Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy, of course, will run this Department of Government Efficiency, but it will notably be kept outside of the government, essentially keeping it out of the reach of congressional oversight. And we know, right, they have promised full transparency on X, and they've almost promised crowdsourcing of issues as well. But does it concern you at all about the potential lack of congressional oversight there?
Well, they won't have the power. They will make the suggestions to the president. But you have to realize a lot of these things, people think Congress and congressmen in their arrogance think they run government. And the reality is it's unelected bureaucrats that have been put in place by executive order. And Donald J. Trump will clean up a lot of those executive orders that have been put in place. I have firm confidence in these two men. They have a history of running things a lot better. I mean, Musk got a hold of Twitter, changed it to X. I didn't really like that. I have an X account at Tim Burchett, but I put the word out. But he fired, I believe, close to over half the people in the corporation, and it's still running very well. So I think he understands what needs to go on. And Vivek, he's got an incredible work ethic. He's an incredible human being, and I look forward to both of them being able to do what they do, because they will turn this thing around if we allow them to. But I'd warn folks, Congress won't have the guts, either party, because, you know, I was county mayor and we made some big cuts in Knox County. And every cut has somebody's cousin or wife and or girlfriend associated with it, because somebody or husband works in that department or something like that. And Congress will be much gnashing of teeth, I predict. But I hope we remain firm and true to President Trump's wishes on this, because we need to get this government under control. Every 100 days, we add another $1 trillion to our debt, and neither party has any plan to pay that back or get out from under that.
You've been heavily involved in the UAP topic. Do you have any idea or hope, perhaps, that the Trump administration would push for more disclosure there?
Yes, ma'am, total disclosure. You know, the Senate, Senator Schumer came out with about a 60-page bill last year for disclosure. I had one that just was 2 pages. The 60-page bill, he used it. He mirrored the John F. Kennedy release of those files, and here we are over 60 years, and we still don't know what the heck went on there. There's not a dadgum clue of what happened, because they will not release those files. Again, letting unelected bureaucrats over things that should be transparency. The UFO-UAP issue, to me, is not about little green men or flying saucers. It's about where the heck are we spending these tens of millions of dollars? And when I have a bureaucrat tell me that they don't exist, and then I say, well, will you release the files? And they will not release the files. And every letter you've seen is redacted. Since 1947, at least, this has been covered up. And it's time for the American public to know what we're spending this money on. Every agency, almost, well, not every agency, but quite a few of these government agencies have departments that investigate the UFO phenomena. NASA, the CIA, others. We've had testimony that told us about crash retrieval. Bodies have been recovered. What type of bodies? What type of craft? Lou Elizondo headed up a department at the Pentagon, and the bureaucrat said, this department does not exist. And he literally produced his check stubs to show that he actually had worked for this department, and they had a budget of over $10 million. So something's going on. Somebody's covered up something. You all in the media should be on top of this. It should be about transparency. And why would you trust a government that does not trust its people? They claim we can't handle things. I've been briefed on things that are they're pretty wild, I'll be honest with you. But you all in the media should demand transparency in this issue.
Well, I hope that we can continue this conversation. Republican Congressman from Tennessee, Tim Burchett, thank you for taking the time to be here with us today.
Thank you, ma'am.